Hey everyone, it's Kelly. Thanks for joining me. I am back today with a new layout for the Cut Shop, and I'm going to be using one of the Freebie Friyay cut files. I'm going to be using the Picture This cut file, and I will post a link to it in the description box below. I did alter the cut file slightly for the design that I'm going to be creating today, so I am going to start out with a Cricut Design Space tutorial. I already have the cut file uploaded into Design Space, and I'm going to go ahead and bring it into the design screen. Now, I've mentioned this in a previous Cricut tutorial, but if you're using the SVG version of the cut files and you bring them into the design screen, you're going to see on the right-hand panel that the image is there, but you're not actually going to be able to see it on the screen. If you resize the image, it will then show up on the screen. I'm not sure why that happens, but just as long as you resize it, it doesn't matter what you resize it to, it will show up. So I went ahead and inserted a scrapbook template that will just help me in sizing the cut file so that way I know it's going to fit on my 12 by 12 background. I'm going to go ahead and insert another shape and resize it to 3.5 by 2.5 inches. This is going to represent my photo, so that way I know how large I want to make the cut file so it fits to my photo. My plan is to place the photo in that middle section of the cut file with the frame on the right hand side, but my photo is going to be quite a bit larger than the frame, so I need to resize these rows of frames in order to make it work with my photo. So what I did is I just right clicked on the cut file and I ungrouped it. That is the great thing about the SVG version of the cut files. You no longer have to slice them apart, which is fantastic. So I've ungrouped it, and now I'm just resizing all 3 of the rows to make it work with my photo. I'm not really worried about watching that 11.5 inches, which is the largest size that Cricut will cut when using Design Space. Right now I'm just working on getting the frames sized so they fit my photo, and I'll worry about getting that 11.5 inches figured out a little later on in this tutorial. So I like how this is looking. I like that each row of the frames is overlapping slightly, making it one image versus 3 individual rows. So I'm just checking again to make sure that my photo is going to fit in that spot. It looks great. So I'm going to go ahead and drag a box around all 3 of those rows in the cut file, and then I'm going to duplicate it. And the reason that I duplicate it is because I'm going to weld that image together to make it one solid image. But there is no unweld option in Design Space. So if I weld it together and I don't like how it looks or I need to change something, I have to click the undo button until I get back to the point where I welded the image together. So I duplicate it so that way if I need to make some modifications, I can just delete the welded image and make my modifications before welding it back together again. So now is the point where I need to get this cut file image resized to 11.5 inches because it is much too large to try to cut it on a 12-inch mat. So I have inserted a square and I resized it to 11.5 inches, and I'm just dragging the square on top of the cut file to make sure that when I slice the square through the cut file that I'm not going to cut off any important parts of the cut file. And the cut file was a little bit too big for that 11.5 inch square, so I just shrunk it down just a little bit. I'm going to bring my photo back over just to make sure that my photo will still fit in that frame area, since I did have to shrink the cut file slightly, and it's going to be fine. So I'm going to go ahead and move that rectangle out of the way that was representing my photo. And I'm going to bring that cut file image to the front. So I'm just using the option at the top to bring that to the front, so that way I can see exactly where I'm going to be slicing, so that way I can get the cut file centered in that square. Now I like this option in slicing the cut file because it's just going to cut off those little banner pieces that are sticking out to the sides. It's not going to remove any of the frames, but it'll still allow me to keep the cut file the size that I need it to fit my photo. If I were to shrink the cut file back down to fit the 11.5 inches, then the frames would be too small. So this is a great option if you are using a cut file that just has some extra little pieces on it that you don't really need, to just go ahead and slice off those areas to make it the 11.5 inches. So to slice that, I just drew a box around the square and the cut file image, and that selected both of those images, and then went down to the bottom right hand side and clicked the slice icon, and it pretty much compresses the square through the cut file and just cuts off those extra little bits. So here you can see that the cut file is now sized to 11.5 inches. So I will be able to cut it on my 12-inch cutting mat. I'm just deleting the extras off the screen, and then I'm going to go ahead and click the Make It button, and you will see it here on the mat. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the scrapbooking portion of this process video. I went ahead and cut the cut file on a pattern paper from the Pink Paislee Paige Evans Whimsical collection, and I am going to be using a photo today of my son. This was taken about 10 years ago. He was just a little over a year old, and he was actually at my parents' house, and it was finally getting a little bit warm out. Spring had finally come back around, and they had purchased a wagon, and they were taking him on his first wagon ride, and he has a little dandelion in his hand, and he's just smiling, and the sun is shining on his face, and I just absolutely love the photo. My mom is a scrapbooker, so she takes a ton of photos, so I have so many photos that she has taken of him when he was little like this, since they watched him for us while we worked. And for some reason, I had never scrapbooked these pictures of him. I'm not sure why, but I was going through my photo stash and I came across some photos of him when he was little like this. And I went ahead and reprinted them in black and white because my style has changed quite a bit from when I started scrapbooking when he was little like this. I used a lot of 4x6 photos and I didn't convert very many of them to black and white. And he is wearing an orange top. The wagon is red, and then they're walking down a dirt road. So there's some brown and gray and just not so very pretty colors back behind him. So working with this photo in black and white is much more simple, especially since I'm going to be using a lot of bright colors from the Whimsical collection. I wanted to use a lot of different textures in this layout, so I have some floral die cuts, I have some chipboard pieces, I'm also going to bring in some puffy stickers and some rub-ons. I just wanted to have a lot of variation. This layout is going to be very clean and simple. I'm not going to do any mixed media, any splatters, anything to it. I'm just going to embellish. And I really like how it comes together. I think having all these bright colors and the color from the pattern paper with the cut file adds a lot of interest without making it too busy. And I just really am happy with how this comes together. I've been doing a lot more layouts that don't have a ton of mixed media. I still really enjoy mixed media, but I seem to have an ebb and flow when it comes to mixed media. I'll do a lot of layouts with mixed media, and then I'll go through a period where I do a lot of clean layouts. So I'm sure it will all come back around again where I do a bunch of mixed media layouts. So right now I'm just trying to balance the design. I want to have some visual triangles going on the layout just to help your eye dance around. So I have 3 different floral clusters. I'm also going to bring in some different pieces that have some text on them. I will have those clouds on the top left-hand side. I liked that pop of color up there, and I thought that it fit the theme of the layout really well since it is an outdoor type layout. And I'm going to place a rub-on in that bottom left-hand frame. I haven't used any of these rub-ons yet, but they are so pretty. I love the colors in them. So I'm going to cut out this, I think it says enjoy this day or enjoy this moment, and I'm going to add that on that bottom left-hand frame. These rub-ons go on great. It took minimal rubbing to get them to transfer, which is fantastic, especially since I've had them in my stash for a little while. So now it's just going to be a lot of playing with the different options, trying to figure out if I want to add more rub-ons, if I want to add some chipboard, if I want to add the puffy stickers. And I really wanted to have a variety of all of those textures within each of the frames just to add some interest to each of the frames. So I'm thinking about adding a rub-on next to that chipboard piece at the top, but I didn't really like how it was going to fit. I wanted to have it go off the white cardstock a little bit, and that can be a little tricky with rub-ons because they want to pick up a little bit of the color that they are rubbed onto. So I would have that orange on part of the rub-on, and I just didn't think it would look right. I also thought about adding a small title to the top frame, so I'm using some of these small alpha stickers from the Whimsical collection, but I felt like it was just too much text in that top frame since I already had that chipboard piece that says, I think it says you make me smile more each day is what that chipboard piece says. It's hard for me to read on my editing screen because it is so small. So now I've pulled out the puffy stickers and I'm just kind of playing around with those. I will add a puffy floral sticker above that chipboard piece. I thought that that fit well. It added some more color. I was trying to decide what to do about the leaves around that chipboard piece there in the center at the top. I kept adding more and then I take them away and add more again. And in the end, I don't think I keep any in that area. I liked how the leaves kind of flowed off the frame, but I couldn't find another leaf that worked well. I felt like if I had one at the top right, I needed one at the bottom left of that chipboard piece. So I'm just going through the floral die cuts to see if there's something else that I can add to that. So now I'm going to start working on adhering everything down, and these chipboard pieces all have adhesive behind them, but I'm going to add some liquid adhesive because I want to make sure that they do stay in place long term. And as I was adhering those things down, I felt like I needed to add some more texture and just some different pops of color around the layout. So I go ahead and go back to the rub-ons, and there are these really cute stitched images in the rub-on pack. So I'm going to go ahead and add some of those to that bottom right hand frame. I liked that extra pop of color. I liked that they were directly on the white cardstock background, so it gave a different texture, a different level of interest. And I'm just going around and trying to figure out if there's anything else that I want to add to this layout. I decided to go ahead and add some more chipboard pieces. I'm going to add a chipboard butterfly. I will bring in some puffy butterflies off camera. I'm going to add that chipboard leaf to that top right hand cluster. That added another level of interest there. And then I just want to make sure that I have some even texture going around the layout. Now off camera, that frame that has the rub on and says enjoy this moment, I will add the date. Actually, it's just the year using the stickers from the sticker book. And that added another level of texture and interest to that frame on the bottom left. Now, I'm not going to add any journaling for this layout because I actually have photos from this same day that I have scrapbooked, and that will have a process video coming out later this month. And I journaled on that layout, so I didn't feel like I needed to journal on this layout since I already have that documented on a different layout. But I'm just going to keep embellishing. I will embellish a few things off camera, and then I will also add a few rows of stitching using my sewing machine. I'm just going to stitch down the banner pieces on each row of the frame. So you'll see that in the still shots coming up. So I do want to encourage you to head to the Cut Shop store. I will post a link in the description box below. You can find all of the Freebie Friyay cut files in the store, and then you can also check out the other cut files that are available. I will be back again soon with a new layout and process video. As always, I just want to thank you so much for watching.